Just trying to make sure that they can see. You can see that, right? Should I turn up another light? Or is it good? Or okay. Geremy Jasper, welcome to Utah Valley University. We just watched Patti Cakes, and let me tell you, it's fabulous. What did you guys think? Give you a big round of applause. We'll have them come up. Man, that is a beautiful movie. I mean, it just is. It's you know, it's just so great. So I have a few key questions I really want to get to, but I feel like it would be inappropriate to start with them. So let's start with sort of your journey, because I know you're a musician, and I know this is your first movie.
Yes.
I haven't done deep bio background on you, so can you tell us? Can you tell us how this all came about? And I know it was a long process, because I do know that, because I was there for some Q&As, and I've watched some behind the scenes stuff, so I know it was several years in the making.
Yeah, I'm from New Jersey. I'm from around where we shot the film and where it takes place. In my early 20s, I was obsessed with being a musician. That was my dream, to be in a band, to go on tour. And that's what I kind of dedicated myself to being, and finally got signed, and I was able to make records and tour for a bunch of years. Not particularly successfully, but I did it nonetheless.
You were living the dream.
Yeah, I was living which turned into a nightmare. But through that process, I'd always loved film, but it had always been very intimidating to me. I didn't, study filmmaking in school. I studied some film history, and then I started to get involved with the making of music videos for my band, and I got very into stop motion animation, and I was a collage artist for many years and did our album covers too, and that started to evolve into me wanting to get out of writing songs for myself and starting to write stories, and also to actually get behind a camera. And so it took a bunch of years after the band eventually broke up. I went down to New Orleans. I met Ben Zeitlin and the guys that were in the Chord 13 collective, and they were the first filmmakers that I met that were just making films outside of structure. They were just getting a camera, going to crazy locations, finding local people, and making films themselves. And I was in Ben's short film as an actor, and it was the first time I'd ever done anything, and the last time it wasn't very good. But seeing his process was really inspiring to me, and it made me realize, like you can approach filmmaking like I did a band. You can put together people, and some, everybody doesn't have to be a complete expert at what they're doing, but if they have a lot of passion and enthusiasm, and if you have some vision with what you're trying to do, you can kind of create this crazy pirate ship and put it on water. And it can maybe work, and maybe it'll go down in flames, but there was something really inspiring and intoxicating about seeing the way that they work. And through that process, I met Dan Janvey and Michael Gottwald, who became producers on Patti Cakes. And they, even though I hadn't directed really anything at that point, they were very, they gave me the confidence and the push that I needed. And we said, we got very close, and said, one day we're going to make a film together. And that kind of put me on a path. And from there, I moved back to New York, and I met the woman who became my wife, and we started directing together, and we started a little production company. And just by hustling and scratching and writing on anything that came around, we got to make some music videos, and that kind of led to doing these weird experiential events, and then, some kind of odd commercials. And it just meant we were just working and working and working and working, and writing and pitching every weekend, and just kind of living it. And I did that for maybe 8 years, and then I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to write for other people anymore. It's time for me to tell my own story. And then at the end of 2013, I think, is when the idea struck me. And then I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I spent a year learning how you even write a screenplay. And then the rest the rest just kind of built from there. But yeah, I mean, I kind of took a very long road to get to filmmaking. It had always been something that I loved. I just didn't think that I had the skill set to do it. I always thought of it like film school was like medical school. You know, you just had to know all of these, you know, what lens to shoot this and what kind of coverage. And it's very intuitive, actually, the process, at least for me.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. So tell me about Danielle.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, obviously, she's so amazing and so great and carries the film in such a impressive way. Tell me about finding her. And I know her, I mean, I don't think they know her story at all. I know it a little bit, but tell me about that.
Well, the crazy thing about Danielle is people think that I grew up with her in New Jersey and found her and found this like young rapper and then just decided to make a film about her. But it's the exact opposite. Danielle is Australian and had never rapped before in her life when I met her. I had gotten into this program not far from you guys, the Sundance Director's Lab. Yeah. Which is kind of like heaven on earth. It's just an incredible program.
We have students every year who volunteer there as people.
Yeah, so you guys know it's just like the greatest thing, and you know that you bring actors to bring your script to life and to kind of experiment with the scenes. And I wanted to use that as an excuse to try to find some of my characters because they're just so different than the usual kind of, you know, conventional actors. Like I wanted to find an actress who people wouldn't know, that it felt like a discovery, that it felt like, oh, like this could actually be the real young woman from Jersey. And so we searched and we couldn't find the right person. And I, for a short while there, I thought maybe the project wasn't going to work. I mean, she's in every single scene. She obviously, like you said, she carries the film. Like, just thought, okay, maybe this person doesn't exist, and maybe this film just can't happen. And then Noah Stahl, one of my producers, who has a really incredible memory for films and knows indie film backwards and forwards, remembered this film called The East and said, oh, there's this young actress in that. What do you think of her? And he sent me her IMDb photo. And just off the photo, I said, there she is. That's her. That's who's been living in my brain for all of these years. She looks exactly like a cousin of mine, people that I grew up with. Like, she just looks right. And then he said, oh, she's Australian. I said, oh, that's okay. They have a good reputation for
accents,
for their accents. And
what is that? Yeah, it's incredible.
And then I got on the phone with her, and she was like, well, you know, she was pretty nervous about it. She said, you know, I've never done anything musical or rapping. I said, don't worry about it. You know, I'd spent so many hours in the studio that I felt more comfortable with training someone how to do something musical than the opposite. Right. And so she came to the mountain in Utah, and it was just like, within 5 minutes, I knew that she was the one. It was very raw, and like the scenes that we did showed promise, but it wasn't like a slam dunk at first. I just knew that I could do so much more with the story, having someone with the tools and the skills that she had, like, you know, in the soul. You know, the original drafts, I didn't know how much I could stretch her. I didn't know if I could put her in really emotional circumstances, or give her a love scene, or you know, or have her raise her voice and yell at her mother. Like, these were things that was new for me, and I kind of limited how much we got to know Patti. And so with Danielle, I was able to open it up and really humanize her in a way. And then we just kept working on it. And we got one of the best dialect coaches in the world to work with her, because he just loved Danielle. And he had this library of Lodi, New Jersey accent, these women from Lodi, New Jersey, which is where I kind of sort of based the film. And she would just listen to it nonstop. Meanwhile, I was sending her a rap track to learn every week that she would memorize from beginning to end, all different kinds of flows, all different kinds of breathing. And so it was just building and building. And during this process, especially with learning the rap, we didn't know if we had funding. We didn't know. I was still writing drafts. Like, it was a leap of faith. And so there was probably a year and a half, 2 years of building up to what finally became, you know, time to shoot. But you kind of just have to, you have to be really sort of scared about where it's going, but excited, and find the right partners. And like that, this was that kind of special project where I didn't feel like we felt like, all right, we're going to do this together. We're going to figure out a way, and we're going to work our asses off to get to the place where the character needs to be. And she, I mean, I've never seen someone work as hard as her. It's unbelievable.
It sure worked out great. So are you telling me though that you first met her right here here in Utah? Just
right here, right there in Utah.
Up that canyon, right there.
Up that canyon. That's right.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. There we go. Patti Cakes and us. So okay. So my other casting question. Well, first of all, I mean, the whole cast is so great. I recently did a summary of my favorite performances of the year, and it was always in pairs, because I always find actors work best in pairs. You know? And so Danielle and then the actor who plays Jerry were on my list of like my top 10 favorite. I mean, he steals every scene he's in a very good way.
Which is amazing, because he had never acted before. I mean, he was, you know, I found him on World Star Hip Hop. He had never. And I brought him to the labs too. He had just graduated from college. I called him and said, "Do you want to come to Sundance?" And he said, "Oh yeah, definitely." And he came out there, and I mean, we had a lot of, just like training Danielle to do the music, like getting Sid comfortable in front of the camera took a lot of work, and he worked really hard, and we did it. Working with him kind of taught me what it is to be a director and work with actors. It was a cool process. But yeah, he was totally raw. I'm glad that you responded to his performance.
But the one thing I wanted to talk to you about is Kathy Moriarty.
Yeah.
Who is, to me, like one of the most glamorous women in the world. Yes. And when I mean, halfway through the movie, when I saw it at Sundance last year, I was like, oh my gosh. You know, it suddenly dawned on me who I was watching. And did you get, I mean, was she, I mean, I imagine the answer is that she was game, but it seems like a lot of people would have been like, I'm not playing this role.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I got really lucky. With
and just in case you don't know, Kathy Moriarty is Nana, who is in Raging Bull and in
Soap Dish and
Casper, right? Yeah, she's in everything. So
she's in a lot of stuff. She made a lot of movies.
Right.
I got really lucky. The previous year, I kind of shot my first short, which was like a glorified commercial for this leather jacket company. But they gave me some money to make this really crazy movie down in Mexico with the circus, and Harvey Keitel was in it, and David Beckham's in it. It was really, I mean, I call it the most expensive student film ever made. Like it was, they just kind of let me go nuts, which was crazy. And it was also really intimidating. The first real actor that I was ever working with, the first like SAG actor was Keitel, which
not
wearing a diaper that day I was so scared. But through that process, I got to cast Kathy as this like sultry diner waitress, and she's still very glamorous.
Oh yeah,
she's way younger than Nana. I mean, she's
like my age. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And you know, she has flowing platinum blonde hair, and yeah, she looks like a movie star, like a classic movie star. But I met her there. I met her in Mexico, and I sat down with her in her trailer. And as soon as she opened her mouth, she just reminded me of the women that I grew up with in New Jersey. She's from the Bronx and then Yonkers. And there's like a kind of shared DNA there, but that, you know, she has the voice like this, and that's really what she talks like an.
She always has
it's
to.
just lived in, you know. There's so many cigarettes and dirty jokes that have come out of that that throat, and it just like it. She just had this soul that. It was like the piece of the I already had Bridget, I already had Danielle, I already had Sid, and she just felt like, oh, I can. There's like a foundation that there, and I was looking for who. When you have Danielle and you have Bridget, who is the third? Who is the matriarch that Bridget Everett would be intimidated by? And there's not many people that but you bring in Kathy Moriarty, and like, you know, everyone's going to get in line. And so I sat with her and I talked to her, and I just couldn't get the idea of her as Nana out of my head. And we got very close, and she's just like really delightful to work with. And I said, I have a script and I want to send it to you. It's not ready, but when it is, I'll send it to me. And I don't think she took it very seriously. And then finally I sent it to her, and it was the most nervous I ever was in pre-production, because I just could not stop imagining her. I didn't know how we were going to transform her, but I just knew that she had the essence of this character. And then she called me and she said, I don't like it, I love it. And then I just jumped for joy. But I had found, you know, and then I got the three of them together, and they just like, they felt like they were from the same family. There was just something. And then John Carter, who did the wigs, and he's like a genius. He picked out that wig, and once she put that on, she was just transformed. And she had there was no vanity involved. Mm-hmm. She had no problem with aging up. And I mean, she has teenage kids. So, and suddenly she's a grandmother in the film. So she was totally open and enthusiastic. And, you know, this was a very unglamorous shoot, no trailers, everybody just kind of sitting around, and she treated it like it was her first film. Like, she was really, she's the coolest.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I have one last question, and then we'll bring people up. So these are film students here, and Patti Cake's or Patti's journey teaches something for artists who are developing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little? Can you tell me? I mean, you maybe have never thought of it, but what can filmmakers learn from Patti?
Oh, I don't know. You know, the thing that people don't let you know, or maybe you do, because I never took the right classes, but you do get beat up a lot making stuff, and that's like a part of the process. You make a lot of mistakes, you make a lot of bad stuff, and I don't know if that's a part of the teaching process, but I know it's definitely a part of the making process. And there's like, when you're a filmmaker, when you're an artist, when you're a musician, there's like, you put yourself in very vulnerable positions, because you have to really believe in this kind of crazy idea, and then you're sharing it with people, and most people don't give a shit. And so it's, I know with writing Patti, that was something that I came back to a lot of times. And when you're in your early 20s, there is this kind of hunger that makes you almost blind with just wanting to get your voice out there. And you get swatted down and smacked like over and over and over and over again. And it really is about just finding those one or two people in your life that believe in you, and like that believe that you can collaborate with, or that you can talk about these anxieties, or you can bounce ideas back and forth. Like that's what makes things happen. And for me, I didn't have those people until I met the Court 13 guys, and then I was kind of further on in life. But then I felt like, okay, things are possible. So yeah, don't get you get smacked around, guys. Sorry, it's just part of the process. It doesn't stop, you know. It doesn't.
That's
stop.
true. Yeah, it's true. It keeps going. Now, I do have one last question. If you have a question, come up, get here, so there's not some dead time, and have questions. So, what's this past year? Almost exactly to the day, you came to our Meet the Filmmakers event.
Oh yeah.
And that was, I mean, Sundance starts officially tomorrow, and that was, I think, like on the 22nd or 23rd of last year. So tell me what this year's been like.
It's been crazy. I mean, so I premiered, it would be like it would be on this next coming Monday. We premiered on it. We premiered at Sundance, and then it was like that. Life was different, you know, like the opportunities I never dreamt of, and meeting my heroes, and you know, I've just been on tour with this film, and even before that, just like getting the film ready, going out and talking to people. Like I had to become a social animal, which was like a kind of a strange change for me, to go out and do like the little song and dance for people. And yeah, I guess I just kept living the film. I couldn't get out of New Jersey, basically. I was in that mental space. And I thought that I would spend this past year, like, you know, developing the next thing, but it really became, you know, because it was such a dream come true that the film was going to go out to theaters, which was always, you know, almost exceeded what I thought was going to be possible to do.
I saw a trailer for it in London, by the way.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. But yeah, the last year has just been living the film. This will be, I think, tonight will be the last Q&A we'll do on film. So that's pretty good. We've gone 1 year.
1 year, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, almost to the day. Yeah, but I got really sick of hearing myself talk about it.
Well, we're not sick of it at all. In fact, we have a long line here. So come on up, say your name. And if you ever start to get, hey, it's, you know, I know it's 11 o'clock where you are, so if you, or later, if you ever just start to get tired, say maybe one more.
We're already doing it. I'm doing good, thanks.
And I'll adjust
Hi.
here.
Sorry, I'm short. Hi, I'm Alexia. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Alexia. Nice to meet you. How are you?
So I wanted to say before my question that I really appreciated that one scene where she goes into the tunnel for the first time. It was kind of like Alice going into the hole or falling into the hole for the first time, and after that, her life is changed. Like, so cool. But I wanted to ask you how. So she has like her idol, her like main inspiration, where she draws like her power, I guess, from OZ, and then she meets him and she's totally crushed, right? So I was wondering, so she goes through this period where she's like, forget it, I don't want to do it anymore, but she still wants it, and then has to figure out a way, like, if I want this for me, how am I going to make this mine? Were there any similarities that you had to draw back on for yourself, like in your own life, where you were maybe struck down and then like still wanted it, but had to figure out a different way to get there with this project or other projects that you might have worked on as a director?
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah, that's a good question. I think it's happened many times where it'd be going down a path and it feels all right, and then you realize, oh, maybe this isn't as honest as I can be, or maybe I'm like, maybe there's a persona here, or maybe it's just not ringing as true. I mean, luckily I didn't go through something as traumatic as Patti. I did feel like I went through little pricks of that experience in time. There wasn't like one, but I did have the experience where I was probably about 21, where I snuck into a big record A&R guy's office, with my DVD, with my CD, excuse me, and I got him to play it, and he totally read me the riot act, and he told me that no one would ever want to listen to that music, and he completely like smacked me in the face. I don't think that I had a different reaction than Patti did. I didn't quit. I just said like, F that guy. I'm gonna show him. But yeah, that's the only thing that I can remember at this point.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're totally fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool, bye.
Okay, one sec here.
Hey.
Yeah, you're good.
Hi, my name's Errol.
Hi, Errol.
One thing I noticed, I've been watching movies for the past like 6 hours, so my brain's a little fried. But
Wow.
one thing I noticed is that like New Jersey itself was kind of like almost a character in the film.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that like in a lot of the best movies, that's the case, that the place where it is set is often it has a feel and, you know, an attitude or behavior almost its own. So I was wondering what goes in, at least in your experience, what goes into capturing kind of the essence of a place like that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I feel like it's about the details. I mean, because that's where I grew up and where my whole family still lives. I just knew I wanted to litter the film with all these tiny, tiny little details that mostly the people around where I grew up with would know, like that are little signifiers or inside jokes. But I feel like you have enough of those details and you get them right and you go to the real places and you shoot on location. That's when an area becomes a character. That's when it feels unique. I have this big pet peeve of things that are supposed to take place in New Jersey and then are shot in LA, and like you can just tell instantly. I mean, it's just like if something was supposed to take place in the town that you grew up in, and then you see it represented on screen, and it's totally wrong, and like the buildings don't look like that, people don't dress like that, blah blah blah. So for me, I drove a lot of the department heads crazy because all of those little details needed to be right. Like people needed to be wearing these very specific things, and Patti's house needed to be art directed a very specific way. And, you know, it's all of those, every tiny little detail builds up into something that feels alive. And so that's kind of the best compliment I can get, that you feel like it's a character, because it should be a character. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks. This is like speed dating.
Yeah. we lined everybody up. We lined everybody up according to tall, short, tall, short.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Allison.
Hi, Allison. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you too. So I was just wondering, like, where did you get the inspiration to like write a story about a rapper who kind of grows up in this like not so wealthy like family, like they're not well off? Like, where'd you get the inspiration for this?
I mean, some of it's based on my family, extended family. It's because it's from around where because it was based around where I'm from, and there was a lot of similarities between myself and Patti. I was 23 and living in my parents' basement and taking care of my grandfather who had a broken hip, and filling notebooks with endless songs and rhymes that no one would ever hear. And hip hop was my first love. I was when I was a 5th grader, I was performing at a talent show, kind of making an ass of myself, as like a suburban New Jersey chubby blonde rapper. In secret, I had always kept notebooks full of rhymes for 15 years or something like that. And so when the idea for Patti as a character came to me, it just felt like a perfect combination of being able to deal with where I came from, the people that I grew up with, and my love of hip hop. Because I wrote the songs too, and did the music, so like I was able to find this alter ego to get all of this stuff out. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Allison.
Oh, well, there we go. All right.
Hi.
My name is Bryce, and
Hi,
love
Bryce.
it. It was fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. So about, I mean, you already mentioned growing up, your love of music, how you kept the notebooks and everything. And you also wrote these songs, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned like you're growing up in your love of hip hop, but throughout the film, we see that like rap is used to not to tell the story, but also give it a fantastical element. Like, what about rap and its implementation into the film really like hit that imaginative or creative stride with you? Like, how did you feel you could use rap to kind of propel the story and like make it that fantastical?
Yeah. Well, hip hop is really interesting because, and what's exciting about it is like with hip hop, you kind of create a persona, and the persona is like you with superpowers, like it's like braggadocious, and like you're taking things about yourself and elevating yourself and making yourself seem like bigger than life. And it's a fantasy in some, there's a stream of hip hop that's like become very like real and honest, but there's also a strain, and it's kind of the strain that I grew up with, where it was like things were kind of dipped in fantasy. And so when you have a young woman who like doesn't really have a lot going for herself, it seemed like the perfect combination of her using hip hop as this superpower, as this kind of imaginary space where she could really kind of harness all of her desires and creativity and kind of dream herself into something bigger. And so, the film is in some ways like about that kind of struggle between like living in a fantasy world and the joys of that, and then like dealing with the harsher realities, and then how at the end does she marry those two things. But yeah, and I also grew up like watching MTV when they played music videos, and so like that was almost my film school, was sitting in front of, early Jay-Z videos and all the Hype Williams stuff. And so like, that's just such a part of my visual vocabulary that I wanted to be able to use that stuff. I didn't want to just have like some sort of, gritty verite film. I wanted like, I wanted the fantasies to be just as much a part of the film. Like in the early versions, it was almost half and half, but I had to scale it back.
All right. Well, that's awesome. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, dude.
Should be the right height.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. My name is Alex. So there's one scene in particular that I'm really interested in hearing about. So the whole film is shot in a handycam style, but the scene where Patti is getting her hair done by her mom switches to a really steady dolly pull out. And then it goes right back to the kind of the shaky cam for the rest of the film. That was the only point that I noticed that was not in a handheld style. Can you talk about that and talk about your camera decisions overall in the film?
Whoa, echo. Check one. Echo. Okay. The camera style came basically I mean, I always knew I wanted to have kind of a verite style, and because the characters are slightly bigger than life, I wanted to have something that felt very intimate and made them feel very real. And so I felt like doing it handheld would sort of, and it was a risk because we were nervous that maybe some of the more comedic moments wouldn't work, but also we had very little money and very little resources to pull off the film, and we had a 5-week shoot and the script was much longer than obviously what's on the screen, and so there was a lot to shoot. And so Fede Cheska, who is the DP, it just became much more run and gun than I thought it was going to be. It was, I have a music video background that's like much more on the dolly and like much more designed shots and kind of setting, and that's what I thought the film was going to be like. But then we kind of got in these scenes, and Fede was kind of an acrobat, was capturing these things that felt very real, and it just felt right, and we kept going with it. There were other scenes, and maybe some of them got cut out, and maybe some of them just kind of slipped by you, where we did quite a bit of dolly shots, but I think they kind of work seamlessly with what else is going on. But that shot in particular that you call out, which is good on you that you got that, you know, I just wanted to do it kind of in one long take, which caused a lot of problems for me because we couldn't cut out of it. So I realized, oh, when you do that, when you try to capture the scene in one move and you don't have any coverage to cut to, you have to get very creative. So that I think we ended up cutting in 2 performances and cut in between a shot of the flyer. But basically the camera style came out of how quickly we had to shoot the film. We made our AD cry once when we said we wanted to pull out the dolly tracks because we didn't have time. We didn't have the money. We were always running and gunning. And there's something, I wouldn't have planned it this way, but I think there's something about the visual style that works with the characters and the vibe of the location, which I'm happy about. The next film and the next project will be very different, but I tried it, and Fede and I tried as much as possible to bring in those things, but it's very limited. I mean, you'll see when you make your film. It's tough. If you're gonna have these, if you're gonna bring out the dolly and experiment with those kinds of shots, it's really exciting and great. But you know that you're going to be losing other shots that you might need. Mm-hmm. So it's just this kind of logistical dance that you're always doing.
I will say I really liked the shot there because it just gave us a little bit of time to pause on that moment.
Exactly.
It felt like the moment that she connected with her mom really for the
and I wanted to capture that kind of awkwardness where things just kind of stick for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Yeah, a couple more.
Okay. Hi, hopefully you can see me. I'm a little short.
I can see you.
Okay.
Very handsome.
Oh, thank you.
That's all we needed. No, sit down.
Oh, my name is Rand. And
hi, Rand.
I really liked your movie. It was very enjoyable. And what I like about movies is that I noticed some Easter eggs in there. And there's some Easter eggs that I noticed in the movie. I'm not quite so sure if this is intentional or anything.
Okay, I like this. I like where this is going. Okay.
So I noticed that there's some scenes that are in black and white, and also the scenes where there's like the big guy OZ that he has like a green hue every time it shows him and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, like with those little Easter eggs, is that like a reference to the Wizard of Oz?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just noticed that and I just saw that it was really cool, and especially with like Patti Cake's, like Patti having her own like group band, and the way that she was like Dorothy and the rest of the band were.
You got it, man. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I just enjoyed it more because it just felt like it was a mixture of School of Rock and Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got it. I mean, it even says in the script, like when they're going into the gates of hell, like Patti and the crew walk up like, you know, like Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, and yeah, and I guess Nana's the Cowardly Lion.
I was thinking that like Nana was going to be like the Tin Man because she got a stroke later on. So, but I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I would say that Jerry is like the Scarecrow, and Bastard is kind of like the Tin Man because he has to find it. So she kind of gives him a heart.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that makes Nana the lion. Well, you know, we'll work on that.
Well, it was really cool, and I liked how he used it that way with those Easter eggs. So it was really enjoyable.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Have fun. Thank you.
Happy Easter.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No, it's okay.
Oh, hi.
Hi, my name's Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
I guess this might be a little redundant after the question you were just asked, but my question is regarding Bob the Antichrist.
Yes.
Great. I love that character, and I was just wondering where your inspiration for him came from, or if he was based on a real person, or what.
Yeah, he was kind of a mixture. I think originally, well, obviously I had Patti, and not long after Patti, I had the idea for Jerry, and then I was kind of thinking of like suburbia where I grew up, and what kind of characters and what kinds of subcultures, and I got very interested, and there was always a lot of goth kids around, and like I knew this black goth kid growing up, and it was quite different than Bob, but like it just started to, and I sort of think of like, you know, the phases that I went through, and I'm, you know, there's just as much Patti in me as Bob, and he just started to evolve, and he was the character that I think was the most open until we found Mamadou to play him. You know, because when you have a character that doesn't say much in a script, it's hard for people to understand who this guy is. You know what I mean? And Mamadou's his performance is almost like he's like a silent movie actor. You know, he's giving you a lot with very little. You know, just a little twitch or just a little head movement. You know, it's saying a lot. And I remember people would read the script and they're like, I don't get this character. And I knew who he was, but I couldn't articulate it, and I didn't want to overwrite the character because he's a man of a few words. And then we found Mamadou, who's like a Yale acting graduate and like the real deal, and in a lot of ways couldn't be more different than Bob, the character. But once he put on the dreads and the piercings, and like suddenly this guy came to life, and it was just like an amazing transformation, and just like a huge relief. Because if that character didn't work, then the film kind of doesn't work. But yeah, he's based on kids that I grew up with, some of my own stuff. Yeah, he's a good combination.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All the characters were great. He just stood out. I really love that character. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Well, I think we are done.
Oh, yeah, we made it.
Yeah, made it through.
Way past my bedtime.
Yeah. I promise. So this is the last time you'll ever have to talk about Patti Cake.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
Before you leave, I do want to ask one last thing, and that's what's next. If you can talk about it publicly.
I'm writing an epic in another dimension. That's all I can say. But it's it's not New Jersey, it's not hip hop, but it's
that is another dimension.
It is. It's early days, and I'm going to spend this next year writing it, and hopefully we'll get to shoot it in 2019. But it seems like the evolution of, like, it seems like the right next step after this film. Yeah, there's a slight sci-fi quality to it, and will not be handheld.
Well, I can't thank you enough. It's a beautiful film, like I said before, and you're so nice to share both here and the year before when you were at Sundance and coming and speaking to us there, and just really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for your time, and have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Well, we'll see you, Geremy. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
All right. Oops, let me stop that. I thought I had.